Good evening. We are picking up roughly where we left off last time. I think I forgot to put my dragon back on my hotbar. Okay, so if memory serves, I was fighting like an eyeball boss. And he made me, like, drop all my potions on the ground, like pour them out. Which was rather rude of him, honestly. But I've got something of an idea of how to handle that once I remember where he actually is. I also noticed that this room doesn't seem to be fully lit up, so I gotta find the last torch. Also, congratulations, Jigstraw, on being first. There's probably gonna be a sconce somewhere that I just missed. Oh, there it is. It wasn't even hidden. You have lit all the lights in the library. It's probably at the top of this. I remember it was in like a room that I had to like go left and then climb up to it. There it is, yeah. Alright. This is fine. These guys are scary if I let them get the drop on me. You are an expert. You reached level 10. I can work with this. Conveniently timed as well. Okay, so if I recall correctly, Thing was immune to both arrows and magic, so I gotta use melee for it. The plant was surprisingly effective. My best melee weapon is probably this axe. My frost magic didn't accomplish anything. So I should probably go with healing robes, because it's going to be doing a lot of constant damage to me. Anything supposed to improve melee? I think I'm kind of wearing all of those. Like this one's plus 21 damage with axe, this one's plus 10 damage with axe, this one's plus 3 crit with axe. Being able to wear 8 of them at once is kind of insane. Yeah, basically, my thought process is if it's gonna make me pour out all of my potions, what if I just drop all my potions? I think there were a couple things that I had that made my melee stuff stronger, like this one here. So I should probably use one of these before I actually, start the fight. That was actually me hitting D twice, because I forgot how to play this game. This is fine. Looks like the buff doesn't last very long anyway. Big number though. My ability to time dismounts is not always the best, but that's okay. My health isn't doing too badly, presumably because the plant's been helping. That said, I don't want to get caught out. I noticed that it's putting silence on me, so I should probably be healing every time I stop it from doing that to me. Oh, my controls are inverted. Oh, my poor pet. Big crit though. This boss isn't very good. I'd call it more of like a gimmick fight. For better or for worse. I don't mind a gimmick fight. I will admit, stuff that messes with the interface rides a fine line. What happened to me? I used to hate about why'd I do that? He was about to die. Hahaha. You've been influenced by the superior mind of Neuron. Now he must be recovering from all his wounds. Laugh it up, Buzzball. We're not gonna let it happen again. Okay, so... he'll also make me pop my halo. I'm gonna try getting killed by an orc and hope that it sends me back before the boss fight. No, it did not. Okay, bothersome. I can work around this though. I gotta revive my plant, that's gonna take some stuff. I guess I'll just drop everything. I'll also have to kill the Jawas after this to get my stuff back, because I do want those potions. And I don't think they're going to still be there. Oh, did he not kill my plant? Did he just make me put it away? Alright. Not as bad as I was fearing, honestly. Like I say, I'd be a lot more bothered if I wasn't pretty sure I could get back all that stuff. Unless it does happen to still be there, which would be nice. It is not. Alrighty, is there a hotkey to drop things? Not that I can see. Can I just drag things out of the inventory? No, that'll be too easy. I can't drop my pets, but that's okay. The only thing I saw it do with one of my pets was put it away, and I don't really care too much about that in the long term. The grand scheme of things. Right, round, whichever round this is. The true loss, my inability to line up timings. This is fine. At least the plant is messing him up. That's good. Oh, nice big crit. Love to see it. We are past the halfway point. I guess the plant is shining like that because it's trying to do its thing. But it can't because it's silence. So the animation just like keeps trying to happen. That's what I presume anyway. It's a teensy bit nerve-wracking, letting this pet's health stay low, because its health needs to not be high. But also, it dying sucks. I'll just reset it whenever its health gets low without the energy. I might just put it away now, actually. Oh, my health's low. I was looking at the wrong bar. Okay, not many more hits, I think, and it should die. To be fair, the slow swing speed of the axe is kind of entirely on me for not putting points into axe. This is fine. At least when I do hit, it hits hard. 2, maybe 3 more hits. Oh, also, random thing while it's on my mind. So I noticed earlier today that, Team 4-Star did an episode of Yu Yu Hakusho Bridge just like 4 days ago. And I was like, oh, that's one of those shows that, like, has been on my to-watch list for like 20 years. And he said, oh, I accidentally skipped a dialogue. It cannot be. It is impossible that an insignificant creature like you has already slain 4 of the Great Guardians. As you can see, it's possible. And now, if you don't mind, I'm going to increase my collection of keys and money. Yeah, like I say, that one's been on a watch list for like 20 years because there's a fox in it. You defeated the 4th Guardian and obtained the key of the catacombs. So like them doing that was kind of like a, hey, remember this thing? That's an option. You could watch that. Kind of moment for me. Alright, Fox, he's actually a red. Until he goes into demon mode. And then he's white. Gotta remember where I put all these. He isn't really a fox outside of demon mode. You take that back. He's always a fox. Get my equipment back. I don't need this anymore, so I can just, like, drop this. And actually, I wonder if I can't use this to, like, lure the, thieves. Will they be enticed by paper in a sub-room? Probably not. Key to the catacombs. If memory serves, that was bottom leftish. I feel like Yu Yu Hakusho, same person, also made Hunter x Hunter. Honestly, at this point, I'm mostly not watching Hunter x Hunter out of sheer stubbornness, so honestly, that makes me want to watch Yu Yu Hakusho even less. It's kind of funny, like, I'm gonna say a hipster thing here. I was unironically a fan of JoJo before it became mainstream. I would not get into JoJo today simply because people are obnoxious about it, and that's kind of how I feel about Hunter x Hunter. It's like, I'm sure it's great, it's just... a lot of the people who think so are incredibly pushy about it. Meanwhile, you're anime Satan. No, you're Resident Evil Satan. want to try and lure some Jawas. I'm not exactly sure how far away I need to get. But I do want those potions back. Oh, here we go. What's up? Perish. Piece of tentacle. Oh, getting everything back is going to take a while. I lost a lot of stuff. I sure hope that, they can drop, like, everything that's, like, despawned and not just... like, things that they have explicitly picked up. Because if it's just the latter, then all those potions will have despawned. One way to find out, I suppose. Are they going to freak out because... This is going to be a pain. I should probably drop the paper closer to the ladder. Better just like drop down on-site blast them. One single coin. Let's call this one a long-term goal. Here comes. Hey Zira, where does shadows like you come from? What you mean? But how were you born? Is there a Shaddy Daddy and Shaddy Mom? I have been created through the powerful magic of my great Lord Harnakon. By magic? Haha. I heard ridiculous stories before, like the store where that babies are downloaded from the internet. But this one is much more freaky. Are you sure that Daddy Shadow didn't put a seed in Mummy Shadow? Nonsense. I don't know, Zira. I don't believe that sentient beings can be created from thin air. And do you remember everything since you were created? That's correct. My first memory is a room with arcane runes and a circle of necromancers surrounding me. That sounds more like you're a bound soul than a created entity. Cool. If we pass nearby, let me know. I'm curious to see where you were born. Impossible. That place is taboo. Even I can't go there. Challenge accepted. Oh, jeez. I don't like this. The skeletons are fine, the fleshy, boneless hands are not. It's like Kakariko bottom of the well. Unhand my dragon, dead hand. Fun fact, in the Ocarina of Time manga, Volvagia, the dragon is the boss of the Fire Temple. Was actually Link's pet as a child. And one of the reasons that it went bad was because Link disappeared. Link disappeared for 7 years. Left it all abandoned and alone. Or so it was led to believe by Ganon. My poor dragon. But he lived. I don't like this. Huh, it's like the mines if the mines were awesome. Catacombs, no wargs allowed. Oh, because they're dogs and they would like gnaw on the bones. That's funny. Also, thank you for the headbats. I didn't notice right away. also occurs to me that I leveled up and should probably put some points in some stuff. I'll keep the other points floating just in case I need like a higher like healing or mental score to do something cool. I could simply jump down to the depths of the catacombs. That is an option. But it looks like there's not that much above me. So I kind of want to try going there first. Oh shoot, I thought that... Okay, well, that went better than I thought it might, not gonna lie. Nope, that's actually about as tall as the elevator in the mines. I will say, now that I've got a better idea of like which bits are dangerous and which bits aren't, I am really digging the aesthetic in here. That looks like a coffin, which usually means vampires. That looks like a fancy hammer. I'm gonna let them kill me. They killed 2 of my pets. For a second at the bottom right there, I thought that those skeletons were levitating. They're actually in alcoves in the wall. So wow, this is extra spooky. Life Spark. Used to make advanced magic potions. Was that a spawner, or... I never did find that guy's name in the library. Welcome, young adventurer. Hi again, but what place is this? Gear, the god of light, grants the opportunity to recover any item polymorphed by dark magic. However, he will only grant his favor to the one who really deserves it. To recover polymorphed items, obtain 100 divine favors and press action under the light. Polymorphed items. So that's a risk now, I guess. When the soldier prayed before the battle, Zalarius the Great said, "No matter which god you pray to for protection, there will always be another man that will pray to the same god asking for your death." You have discovered the challenge, the Devil's Number. The challenge is, carry 666 essences of each color, 666 coins, and 666 divine favors at the same time. That doesn't sound too unreasonable. And it gives 80 coins. Yeah, that's mostly just gonna be, but I guess that also covers essences that I haven't gathered yet. But that's mostly just gonna be, get above each thing and then just, like, drop things until you have the right number. Talk to me, O Great Spirit. I invoke thee in the name of the power of Harnakon the Great. Why do you invoke my name? It is wish the Great Lord that you give me your knowledge of magic. So, you must be the chosen one. I expected you sooner. What? You already knew I was coming. Harnakon told me you were coming. Did you bring the Necronomicon? The Necronomicon? You mean the Book of the Dead? The same. Without that book, I cannot grant you my knowledge of necromancy. Necromancy? Oh, Great Spirit, where is the Necronomicon? In these catacombs exists a room with a great demonic red seal. Between the 5th and 6th candle, there is a secret entrance to the room where the Necronomicon rests. You know that this book is chained. You must find the skull key to unchain it. The keeper of these catacombs holds the key, a silver key in the shape of a skull. You must snatch it. One last thing. To cast the spell that will grant you the knowledge of necromancy, I will need arcane magic essence. Don't worry, I will acquire the Necronomicon, and I will bring you the magic essence. The stupid spirits are all asking for magic dust. What a bunch of yoinkies. Did you hear, Zira? Harnakon is sending somebody else to talk to this pure spirit. Yes, he must be somebody very important to be worthy of the pure spirit's magic. Anyway, I'd better hurry up before the real chosen one comes and the pure spirits find out that I lied. If he appears before I get the Necronomicon, I can kiss necromancy goodbye. Oh no, I gotta go. I don't want to miss out on things. I need to grab a key. I need to snatch a key from the keeper of these catacombs. And assuming that that wasn't just, like, idle banter, and the twist is that Harnakon wanted me here in the first place, and it actually is me. I might actually just lose out on this. Which would suck. True, we might also just kill the Chosen One. If this sends me back to before I talk to the pure spirit... It hasn't, okay. I was gonna say, I wonder if I can just, like, not talk to the pure spirit and, like, not trigger... whatever timer might be involved. If there is a timer. Part of me thinks I genuinely am the Chosen One. But I also know that this game isn't above locking me out of things. Ooh, coffin. That was a lot of arcane essence. Okay, coffin's very worth opening. I wonder if I maybe ought to use the plant instead. It might not be able to siphon life from undead, though. I think that was the thing. The Law Spear? that's just cool is what that is. Pretty slow, but I can work with this. Hello, friend. Looking to get ahead in life? Hey, you headless skeleton. Rivalry and supremacy. Stronger skeletons steal the skulls of weaker ones. Why? Because that is the rule and always has been. That's good. I'm glad to hear that the undead here are sticklers for tradition. Listen, Zero, what if I return his head? This is impossible. A headless skeleton cannot recover his skull. Really? We'll see. What do you put effort into going against the rules of this castle? Because I'm a human, and humans like to break the rules even if they're for their own good. Actually, that's a fox thing. Humans just took it from us. Well, that wasn't terribly difficult. If you get the skull back, you will go against the rules of the undead. So what's gonna happen? They might become angry? They're already trying to kill me, it can't get any worse. Here it is, let's see if I can put it back on. Zero, don't you feel the anticipation? I do not have this emotion. Oh sure, you don't feel emotions. I'm gonna call you Data. There, perfect fit. You have restored me. You have completed me. Why? Well, I just did it to contradict an old friend. I now in debt. I now give treasure. Ring of the Underworld. 25% chance with Frost and Arcane. 5% extra crit with Frost. That is really, really good. Frost and Arcane, which is I presume what Necromancy is. That is extremely aerial core. Let's go. It's not the most aerial core thing possible, but it's like one step below. I sure hope I don't get locked out of Necromancy. Oh, another claw spear. Less upfront damage, but it's got the cold damage proc on it. Which would probably make it better if I wasn't mostly using spears for poking things. Ugh. I tried to put the dragon away fast enough, but I guess it didn't work. I was like hitting the button. Weird. Oh well. I'm pretty sure the plant won't work, but I want to at least give it a shot. Round 2 is definitely going a little bit better. Exit of Mausoleum Magnum. Guess there's an entrance elsewhere, most likely up above. Oh, they can climb ladders. I still got plenty of blue essence. Wait, what did I leave behind? One more thing to get back from the Javas. Exit of Mausoleum Magnum. Maybe it's up a screen? The entrance, I mean. I'll stick my nose back in there just in case. Oh jeez. Spooky. I await the elevator. Wait a sec, that didn't hurt. Oh jeez. Golden Essence was hypnosis, if memory serves. Or mental, rather. No, I'm thinking of like orange. Golden was different. You are new here. Yeah, but I'm not sticking around, you know? By the way, that is a beautiful silver skull-shaped key you're wearing around your neck. I am Keeper of the Key. Really? And what does this key open? Open Book of the Dead. I must give key to Great Necromancer. Are you Great Necromancer? Yes, I am. I am the Great Necromancer. Go on, give me the key. You must show black amulets. Oops, I left them in my bed. Oops, I left them in my bedchamber. I'll be back with them. Ysira, what amulets is he talking about? The Necromancer's amulets. In ages past, an amulet was given to any necromancer that offered his life to the undead. Their task was to hold them, even in their tombs. Really? Then if I find the bodies of these necromancers, they might still have these amulets. Even if you find them, how could you take them without desecrating their coffins? That's easy. I just reach in and grab them. Fool! Does your lack of respect know no limits? Look who's talking. You possess me, intending to take over my body and kill me. It's not the same. Why not? But... Zira, don't argue with me, okay? Let's see if I can't find these amulets. So is this like go back to every coffin? That's quite in line with the other Sphere quests. No. I'm not grave robbing. I'm doing archaeology. Protective Ring of the Necromancer. Well, it didn't protect that guy. Protection against shadows plus 5. I guess we take those. My poor dragon. My inventory is once more getting clogged. I'm opening the coffins, but I'm not getting black amulets. I'm not sure if it's just like a random drop or if I'm doing it wrong. I'm sure I'll figure it out eventually. Entrance to Mausoleum Magnum. Here resting with honor are the great necromancers. So I guess that's where I go to get the amulets. You should not disturb the dead. Oh, come on, Zira. Don't be superstitious. Anyway, they've been dead for a long time, right? Defiling graves is a crime never left unpunished. The dead will seek revenge. I'll burn that bridge when I get to it. That said, we're gonna take a 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. A little bit late, not because I was doing something, but because I temporarily forgot that I existed. My brain just switched off for like a minute. These things happen sometimes. Oh, did they kill my guy? They killed my guy. I'm just gonna stop having a pet out. It's not good for them. It's like letting a cat outside. It's like, I don't care that you're pawing at the door. It's just bad for everybody if I let you out, yourself included. So I'm not gonna. I'm also a little bit low on green essence. Might be worth my time to go to like the chef and to Zoran and resurrect my pets and get some more green essence. I'm hitting the button to turn around and it is not registering. Unfortunate. I just got the strangest urge to play Sonic Adventure. Like, I feel like in general that's like a completely normal urge, but like, getting it right there for like 1 second, that was weird. I think you played most on GameCube. Honestly, probably same. Like, Smash Melee was definitely one. I did a lot of Pokemon XD, but that's mostly because XD is just like a really big game. Did a fair amount of Wind Waker, but I didn't like replay that game over and over very often. Mostly because on the GameCube version it took like half an hour to like start a new game, and like growing up I was only allowed to play games for like some fraction of an hour at a time. So whenever I wanted to restart Wind Waker, I basically had to dedicate an entire day's game time to just like watching the opening cutscene. I did play a ton of Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow the Hedgehog, all those games. Where would I be without healing magic? Probably 6 feet under. Speaking of without healing magic, that's me right now. I've got 1 spell's worth of essence left. Exit of Mausoleum Magnum. Played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories. I never had that. I had Eternal Duelist Soul for the Game Boy Advance, and that was it. Though that game has been showing up a lot on my YouTube recommended recently, presumably because people keep talking about it, and I keep commenting on it. And Google is spying on everything at all times. Yoink, amulets. I think Guy is a screen above me. Wait, was there a store that I just forgot to go into? That sounds like something that I would do. Ow. How's it going? I'm the Necromancer. Here are the 11 amulets. My task is over. Now you are the new keeper. Okay, wait, hold on. The text of that quest was... In these catacombs, there exists a room with a great demonic red seal. Between the 5th and 6th candle, there is a secret entrance. Great demonic red seal. Let's see what's for sale. See in the dark. Loading block of ice that serves as a shield against projectiles. Sounds really nice, actually. Imbue sword or dagger with cold damage. Light magic. Interesting. Let's see. Necromancy and Divine Light. Oh, that's lame. This is one of those ones that, conflates Necromancy and, Arcane. Lame. Oh well. Staff of Blue Magic, 60% more frost, 8% more frost crit. Not a huge jump over what I've already got. Oh, 2 green essence saving though, that's really nice. It's strange that it doesn't even remotely follow the rules of TCG, but you can redeem numbers from official TCG cards in-game and buy them. I could see that being the case if, like, they started development of the game at the same time that the TCG was, like, in development. The cards numbers had all been, like, ironed out, but the rules hadn't been, like, ironed out. Look around the Duelist Kingdom Battle City era. I could very easily see that being the case. Ooh, plate armor. Okay, a serious red seal. I should probably also go heal and pick up more essence. That would be the wise thing to do. I'm gonna do that. The game came out before the anime even did? Oh no. In that case, yeah, I'd be going off of, like, Season 0 anime rules. Anime manga rules. In which case, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Incidentally, if you've never seen it, like, the very start of Yu-Gi-Oh! Back when it wasn't all about duel monsters, when it was more about, like, games in general. Like, the very start of the manga timeline and what I call Season 0, because it takes place before, like, the anime that, like, is still running today. It's actually super good, I highly recommend it. Like, it is really, really good. Like, if you ever thought it was kind of weird that, like, Yami put Kaiba into a coma at the start of, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! He did stuff like that all the time in Season 0. Kaiba honestly got off lucky compared to some of his victims. It was awesome. Potion seller? Well, you're not really a potion seller, but whatever. I definitely noticed that green essence is more expensive than the other types. Yeah, let me think. There's one guy in, like, original Yu-Gi-Oh! Where I want to say that they put a bunch of coins into, like, a shoe. And the game is, like, you want to, like, reach in and, like, take out coins from the shoe. and whoever has the most coins at the end wins. But the gimmick is that there's also like a scorpion with like deadly venom in the shoe. So you have to like reach in, pluck a coin, and hope that the scorpion doesn't like, you know, stab you with its stinger. And so you can be like very quick and very ginger and like, you know, try to pluck a coin quickly, maybe fumble it. Or you can try to get like a better grip on it and like go for more coins, but then like the higher the odds that this scorpion just like, you know, actually puts you into the hospital. And like that's just the kind of stuff that like they did in Season 0 a lot. Yeah, if Yami had lost the game, the guy probably wouldn't have called an ambulance for him. There was another bit where, like, a bunch of guys with stun guns, like, ambushed him. And he set up a scenario where, like... This is the entrance to the place where I was created. They will never let you in. I cannot run. Noctis Umbria, what are you doing here? This area is forbidden for shadows. I've been sent by the Great Lord? To what purpose? To assist in the creation of another shadow. I have no knowledge of such a command from the Great Lord. That's because he just told me a few moments ago. When was it? How did he communicate? And what kind of body is that one that you have possessed? I'm not having this stupid conversation. Not my dragon. I just brought it back to life. Well, that was rude. What was that? Not a fireball. Yeah, like there was like this one section where like a bunch of guys like jumped with stun guns and he like stalled for time while there was like a leak happening. And then like pushed one of them over so that it like his stun gun landed in the puddle and like electrocuted all of them. I just did something, not sure what. Oh, I guess there's a thing over here. We passed, yeah. Now I'll see where you were born. I was not born, I was magically created. What are you saying? But it's where you came into the world. Don't you feel melancholic? I feel concerned. By killing the guards, I have broken my vows to Harnakon and this castle. If we enter that room, I will be declared an outlaw, and not only will I have to give up my privileges as a servant, I will also be pursued and exiled forever. Well, then you'll have more reason to help me. Come on, let's see if we find your first pacifier. That is an elf. Zira, is this where you were created? Look, they're doing some kind of ritual. They have somebody in the center of the room. I was created here. It is evident that the undead sorcerers make use of this room for other rituals. This must be some sort of execution. Let's see if we can eavesdrop without being discovered. We're just not helping the guy, alright. Is that Nathame? A ritual sacrifice dagger. Gurgosha Hanakon, Solul Kalosh Holt Moresh, Trekken Kalosh, Sosh Malduk Somul Krishko, Sola Koshmael. What is he saying? It's black speech. They sacrificed this creature to offer its soul to Harnagon. And he's dead. Girosh Malak, Horesh Faramor Bok Harnakon, Mashmaran Harop, Ordan Kaposh Bok Harnakon Oresh Aman. Azira, translate. They are asking the soul of the sacrifice to serve our lord, but the soul declines. The sorcerer tells him that very soon he will change his mind. Hey, looks like the spirit from the room with all the traps. I don't think he'll change his mind. He seems like a good guy. Manash Kokol, Gerash Bokhanakon Seshmok, Yogul. He changed the spirit into a shadow, just like you. This cannot be. I was not created, I was converted. That's kinda messed up, but I was right, so I'm happy. It can't be. It can't be. My existence is a fake. Yeah, you're adopted. Your parents aren't who they thought they were. The truth of my existence has been hidden to me. Having a bit of an existential crisis, I see. I'm in danger. I mean, just because my armor is not very armored doesn't mean that it's not armored. Be careful, the sorcerer may be close. Ah, you're worried for me? Of course not. Really? You're worrying about me? You're mistaken. Now I shall be declared pariah. If they catch me, they will destroy my essence forever. I cannot allow it. Look, they also want to kill me. So now we're both in the same boat. We're like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, or Thelma and Louise. I don't know who any of those people are. What do I do? Should I go up or go down? I don't know this area. I've never been here before. Then I'll go up. Whatever goes up, later comes down. That is... mildly horrifying. Uh-oh. Blood River. Oh, here we are. Look, down there's the sorcerer that performed the sacrifice. What's he doing? Judging by his powers and his ability to convert souls, his next task may be to finish that Spirit of Light. Spirit of Light? Yes, spirits of light are the strongest foes of undead beings. Look at the other side of the room, over the altar. Oh yes, it's true. Zero, we must stop that sorcerer. We must? Let me remind you that I am a servant of the shadows. Even if I wanted to, being stuck in your body, it is impossible for me to use my powers. Where is he? He went down the passage that leads to the altar. Soon that spirit will be destroyed. This time I'm not gonna let that get away with it. Very brave, but very stupid as well. Maybe you did not notice the guards that defend the sorcerer? If you go down, you'll be killed, I'll be captured, and it will make me disappear forever. All for an insignificant soul. It's not just that soul, but hundreds of them that have already been sacrificed. Think, that guy probably murdered you and converted you into a slave of Harnagon. Kill the sorcerer before he reaches the Spirit of Light. You have only one chance to save it. Uh-oh. Ow. I sure hope this doesn't count. Okay, that didn't count. Oh, I see you. Okay, so the ice blocks actually go hard. I've got sleep. I wonder if sleep would work on him. No, it does not. Okay, if I preemptively freeze myself, they can't light me on fire. I don't care about the two up top. Once I'm past them, they don't chase me. The skeleton that chases me is a problem. There we go. Just needed to crash my brain cells into each other just a little bit. What did I pull out this axe? I must have been mashing buttons. Oh well. It worked out in the end. Spirit of light. Launches bolts of light against undead can only be harmed by arcane. Okay, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the room with the giant red symbol that they mentioned. Let's see. The exact wording again was... Fifth and sixth candle there. There's a secret entrance to the room. So that's like the bottom hallway. Unless it's like those 5 at the upper right. It's like, what are you doing? I guess these are more like sconces than candles. I did try hitting a button up there, but it didn't do anything, but maybe I just gotta do it again. Yeah, these are torches more so than candles as well. In these catacombs exists a room with a great demonic red seal. Between the 5th and 6th candle, there is a secret entrance to the room. The book is chained, you need the skull key to unchain it. So I don't need the key to get in, I just need the key to... unchain the book. Unless it does mean the purple ones. Lex Divinus. When you destroy an undead creature, the God of Light grants you 3 divine favors instead of 1. I don't think I've gotten any divine favors so far. That sounds super useful, though. Very cleric core. I feel like I'm missing something. It would only be useful if I, like, spec'd into it. It's got a stat requirement that I don't currently need. I'm like stutter stepping and hitting interact at every step. I don't think it's working. What are the odds that there's a different blood red seal? Okay, I don't normally do this. I'm gonna look this up just to see if I'm missing something that I technically have touched on, just haven't done right. Let's see here. Okay, so this thing just says there's a hidden secret door between the 5th and 6th candles. Very helpful. This is the correct room, though. Can I find anything with, like, an image? Oh, it's actually a different room. Okay. Never mind. The downside of getting information from, like, forum posts from years ago. Yeah, there's a different room with a giant, great, big demonic seal. Apparently there's two of them. Bro is minding his own business. Or maybe the second post that I read was wrong and it actually was in that room that I was just in. What do you think, Spirit of Light? I'm pretty sure the Spirit of Light just said, I think we need to call elevator button. I agree with you, Spirit of Light. You know, it's this room with a giant red demonic sigil. Would you like to be born again? Isekai? Yes, please. Look, I'm not a religious guy. I possess a powerful artifact that could give you a second chance. I don't understand. A second chance for what? To go back and fix your errors. To choose once again the decisions you made in the past. Sounds tempting. If you're interested, I will give this to you in exchange of blue and arcane magic essence. The choice is yours. It erases all your skill points so you can redistribute them. At the Orb of Rebirth, use it wisely. You only have one chance, and now I must go. I didn't actually read how many that would take. This is fine. Yeah, now I can respec if I want to. I could go Cleric. Mace is holy. Here it is. This must be the Necronomicon. Kalatu. What are you doing? What sort of spell are you casting? I'm saying the magic words so that the undead army won't come out. I never heard a spell like this one. Of course, because you have no movies here. But at home I've watched Army of Darkness at least 3 times. And the main character has to say these magic words. Movies? I do not know this word. Well, I'll explain it later. Just let me cast the spell, take the book, and get out of here. To Barada, necktie, nectar, nickel. It's an N-word. It's definitely an N-word. To Barada. Okay, I said the word. I am animation locked. This is fine. That one guy's minding his own business. Necronomicon. It's got a face on it. played Baldur's Gate Early Access. I think I found the Necronomicon like maybe half an hour in. Apparently the game's changed since Early Access. I wonder if that's still there. That seems like a really odd thing to have, just like grabbable in Act 1 of all places. Granted, it's D&D, so it's just a Necronomicon and not the Book of Isle Darkness. The Book of Isle Darkness is the one you really want to keep an eye on. I was gonna say, I gotta remember where the Pure Spirit is, but then I remember that it's literally on the map, so this is fine. Sounds like hail. I don't hear any hail. I need more Arcane Essence because I traded some for an Orb of Rebirth. Where am I ever gonna find Arcane Essence at this hour? Arcane is the only thing that can hurt the Spirit of Light, so I gotta watch out for those. Skull. Absorbs the vital energy of any living creature, which excludes undead and constructs. Okay, so I've got this for living things, and then this for unliving things. That's cool. I still need to find some more Arcane Essence. If need be, I could go get some from the shop. But that feels kind of lame when I'm in a catacomb. I'm missing exactly one. There we go. Mistakes were made. I got impatient. Wait, I got an idea. It didn't technically save me any time, but like, I feel a little bit better about myself now. And that's gotta count for something, I think. longer feel better about myself. You would think of all the ways to ascend that I would manage to mess up 3 times in a row. The one where you just stand still would not be among them. Unfortunately, just standing still is not among one of my talents. I'm a fox. It's anapemic. I got a zoomie. I'm back. I got Arcane Essence, I got Necronomicon. I brought a Sphere to Light, hope that's not awkward. Oh, great Spirit, I bring you the Necronomicon. Let the secrets of the underworld fill your eyes. Let the power of arcane runes become clear in your thoughts. Let necromancy guide your path. Arcane control? Does this let me take over an undead? Takes control of an enemy skeleton. Every 5 levels of necromancy you can control an extra skeleton. So that's very similar to Rebuke Undead from D&D. Which is the negative energy cleric version of Turn Undead, where they control undead instead of destroying them outright. I found the Pierre Spirit, I found the pet, I have yet to find the Guardian. Oh. Okay, there's at least one torch in here that I didn't light. There it is. I should probably patch myself up. -2 essence cost is so nice for that. Inventory out. Inventory getting a little bit clogged. I do have that Orb of Rebirth. I kind of am tempted to like respec to Cleric. Like Maces and Light. But like I'm almost through the Catacombs and I'm not sure how effective remaining like Light spec would be. I don't know if the deal is built around respecs being common. They're certainly possible, but I got one from a late game quest, and the other source is from Unepic coins, which I don't have a huge number of. The game does have a multiplayer though, so like, the idea might just be that like, you've got a specialist in everything. Or like a handful of people who are good at like 1 to 2 things each. Hard to say. Also, just by process of elimination, I'm probably going to find the Guardian around here. Hi. Greetings, young human. Greetings. Who are you? Are you God? I am not the god you speak of, but yes, I am a god. The god of light. And why are you not in a golden box? Uh-huh. First of all, what you see is not me, but a projected image of myself. Moreover, gods lack limitations that pure spirits have. I have been watching how you fight against the shadows and undead. To help you, I will give you the grace of light. Through it, you will be able to invoke my power to help you fight the undead. Thanks. By the way, by using light I'll be able to destroy any sort of shadow, right? If you're talking about the shadow that you wear trapped in your body that you named Zira, yes, you will be able to kill it, though very soon you will discover something that may change your point of view. The magic of light has been added to your character sheet and you've been given the prayer Bolt of Light. Prayers of light require divine favor instead of magic essences you directly accumulate by killing undead. The more you destroy, the more prayers you'll be able to perform. I was supposed to find this first. And then go to the catacombs with this power and accumulating this resource. Instead, I did everything but this. Let's see. 2 divine favors gives me a bolt of light that harms and stuns undead. Which I presume is just the same thing that the spirit of light is shooting. Golly, that would have been useful a while ago. Yeah, and then I got like this special maze that gives me 3 instead of 1. Which, if I was gonna go light, I would absolutely want to have that. Well, I guess that's an option now. I don't see any exits, so I'm not sure where the Guardian might be. I also still need to go back to the library and find that guy's name. This is a mid-boss area. I've been here. You know what the designs of these undead remind me of? The sorcerers in particular. Zycon from Order of the Stick. A webcomic that I have not been caught up on for a few years now and probably should. I think the last thing I did was like read Start of Darkness. Alright, we're gonna call it there for the night. Thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is going to be on Sunday. The game is going to be Teardown. The next one that I'm playing, Unepic in particular, is going to be on Monday. I hope you have a wonderful night. I hope to see you again. Good night.